Good morning and welcome to Football League World TV. My name's Ned Holmes and this is The Debate Show. Today I'm joined by my colleague Toby Wilding to discuss whether Hull City should sign Marcus Forss, who's obviously on loan from Brentford, permanently in the summer. How are you doing this morning, Toby?
Yeah, good, thanks. This was sort of one of the deals of the January transfer window that really quite caught my eye. I thought this was a really good bit of business for Hull City at the time. So yeah, going to be really sort of interesting to sort of take a more in-depth look at how it's gone for Forss and for Hull since then.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're going to look to break down sort of how the striker's got on, what he really offers, and how he fits into that whole squad, which you'd imagine is going to see a fair bit of investment given the takeover midway through the season. Before we get started, just a reminder to like this video, subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you haven't already, and also let know your thoughts in the comments if you're a Hull fan, if you're a fan of any EFL club or a Premier League club, a Brentford fan or anything like that. Please do let us know your thoughts. Toby, obviously you talked about it there. You know, it was certainly one of January's more eye-catching deals, not least because Marcus Forss had been in pretty impressive form as a bit part player for Brentford in the first half of the season, and we on Football League World had a couple of exclusives about the number of championship clubs and the calibre of championship clubs interested. The likes of Nottingham Forest and West Brom among those, but the Tigers ultimately won the race to sign him on loan from Brentford. And a report earlier this month dropped from Hull Live, which I guess took quite a few people by surprise, myself included. It revealed that the championship club do have the option to buy him this summer. We're going to be drilling into that today, as we said at the top of the show, and whether it be the right move for them to do so. 8 appearances, 1 goal and 1 assist since joining in January. What have you made of his time at the club so far?
To be honest, I'm a bit surprised by that sort of record for Forss. I think obviously we'll probably touch on it in a bit, but when you sort of look back at what he did for Brentford in their championship promotion campaign, he was for me a really solid backup to Ivan Toney for the Bees last season. I mean, it wasn't a particularly prolific record that he had, but when you consider the fact that the vast majority of his appearances were coming off the bench, as I say, providing that sort of cover and support for Toney, I sort of looked at that and thought, it was a decent record, and that the signs were certainly promising for Hull in terms of bringing him in, but that just doesn't seem to have been backed up with that record that he's got since coming to the Tigers. And I think it's worth sort of noting, isn't it, that obviously it's not all down to him. He can only play when he's selected. But you sort of look at the position that Hull are in at the minute in the table, and you think if it wasn't for the points deductions at Derby and Reading, then Hull would still very much be in a battle to avoid relegation at the minute. And so when you sort of consider that and combine it with the situation that Forss is in terms of his own personal performances at Hull, it sort of suggests that while obviously it's not all down to him that Hull is struggling at the minute, he's not really sort of shown the signs that he's the solution to their issues maybe at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there in terms of he really didn't look out of place as the focal point of that Brentford side when Ivan Toney was injured last season. I think a lot of people were expecting a huge drop off in the absence of Toney. I mean, being as he was last season, the best player in the division, but Forss really impressed, and I think you're right. I mean, it's not all down to him, and this is a whole side that have struggled, but there have been other attacking players flourishing, the likes of King Lewis Potter, of course. So yeah, I mean, certainly not the sort of impact we expected to see, I think we can say, since he joined. Let's talk about that impressive goal scoring record you talked about. 19 and 78 appearances for Brentford, of course, obviously with a caveat there that the majority of those have been sort of off the bench or in a bit part role, and 11 in 19 for Wimbledon while on loan previously, really sort of highlighting his quality. There are championship goals in there as well. He looks at a striker that knows where the net is and one with a bright future, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. As you say there, he's prior to this, he's got goals sort of at club level with both Brentford and Wimbledon, wherever he's been. So that certainly shows that even though things haven't perhaps quite worked out for him at Hull so far, there is still, as you say, a striker in there who can make a significant contribution for a team. And I think as well, you've got to remember he's doing this on the international stage as well. He's already sort of broken into the senior side for Finland, and not just broken in, he's got goals there, not least one in a really eye-catching friendly win for the Finns over the world champions France not that long ago. So certainly that again shows the not just the quality that he has, but the confidence that Forss sort of possesses to really step up and make a big contribution on sort of a very, sort of high profile stage. So definitely, even though, as we say, things haven't quite gone as we expected them to at Hull, there is still more than enough quality in Forss for him to be a big player in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we sort of move on to talk about the sort of his contract situation at Brentford and the potential value of a deal and stuff like that, I mean, another real positive, I guess, of Forss is it's hard to really highlight a huge weakness in his game. He's been a prolific scorer, but he gets in behind very well. He's obviously got a big frame, the potential and the attributes there, Toby, to sort of grow into quite a complete forward.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, he is a presence. He knows where the goal is, but he does look like a player. He's willing to do those other bits for the side as well, and that can be so important to have a striker that can do that. And I think as well, when you sort of consider the situation that he was in, sort of playing that backup role to Ivan Toney at Brentford, it seems he's very much he's willing to sort of play that sort of bit part role for the team when necessary. So he is a sort of an all-round player who will contribute. He's clearly someone who you can have in the dressing room who isn't perhaps going to kick up too much of a fuss if he isn't always the first name on the team sheet. And having a sort of player with that type of attitude can also just be really important sort of behind the scenes as well. So I think, as you say, all around a very strong option for a side to have.
Absolutely. 22 years old, as we've said, looks a bright prospect, and with the contract that runs at Brentford until 2026, which I think was sort of part of the surprise, perhaps, in the reports that there is sort of an option to buy in this deal, particularly with the sort of transfer noise that's constantly around Ivan Toney. It was a surprise. We don't know what the fee would have to be to make that deal permanent, but you'd imagine, Toby, it's not going to be cheap for Hull.
Yeah, you would absolutely. As you say, Brentford are going to know that obviously if Toney does go, that the speculation is always there that they're going to have to bring someone in. So if Forss goes as well, that potentially means they've got two strikers that they need to replace. So they're going to want funds coming back into the club to ensure that they can do that. I think as well, as we've already touched upon with his goal scoring record, with the length of his contract, it means they're under sort of no pressure really to sell him, which, as you say, does make it somewhat surprising that the option to buy is in there. But what it does mean is that Brentford can set it at a pretty high price, and if Hull elects not to take it up, then it doesn't really put too much pressure on Brentford in terms of they would still have plenty of time further down the line where if they felt like they wanted to sell him or they needed to sell him, they could still do so whilst receiving a decent fee for him. And I think, as you say, it's worth noting as well, even if Hull don't take up that option, that doesn't mean that there isn't the possibility there for Brentford to sort of make a sale on him in the summer. As you say, Nottingham Forest, we're interested. We don't know whether Keenan Davis will be back there next season when his loan from Villa comes to an end. Lewis Grabban as well, obviously a bit of an uncertain future at his age and with his contract situation. They could need strikers. West Brom, they've really sort of, again, another team we mentioned, really sort of struggled for firepower this season. Only Carl and Grant into double figures, so they're another one who could need a forward. And then I saw reports as well that Blackburn, they were another side who supposedly showed an interest in January. Again, not really replaced Adam Armstrong. Ben Brereton Diaz looks as though he's going to be the subject of a lot of speculation and potentially move in the summer. So, there's a lot of other championship clubs in there who might well feel a need to move for Forss in the summer, which obviously could then still see Brentford get a return on him, and even potentially with that sort of number of clubs who might want him, prompts a bidding war that pushes the price up even further. So yeah, absolutely. if Forss is to leave Brentford this season, then you would expect it to be for a rather significant sum.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, and that's not to say, obviously, that's going to be a fee out of Hull's grasp. Of course, the takeover, as we've mentioned previously, we're expecting a lot of sort of investment into that squad this summer. Whether it's right to put so much of that into Forss, and we're obviously assuming it's a high fee given the things we've touched upon, but obviously it's one that the Brentford and that Hull rather would have accepted at the time of the contract. So certainly an interesting one there. Moving to focus a little more on Hull and their needs. Obviously, Josh McGuinness gone to Wigan in January. Things haven't really worked out for Tom Eaves, you'd say. 4 goals for him this season, out of contract in the summer, but club have a 1-year contract option. That's going to be interesting to see if they trigger that. Young Tyler Smith is still sort of finding his way. Ryan Longman signed permanently in January, of course, but perhaps seen as more of a wide player. Then you've got the youngsters like James Scott, Josh Hines, Will Jarvis, who look like players potentially with a bright future, but not ready really to kick on yet. Obviously, there's the situation with Keane Lewis Potter, a hugely impressive season for him, but constant links to the Premier League, and you think maybe this could be the summer in which he departs. And then there's Aliyah Sayadmanesh that they've got on loan. I hope that's the right pronunciation. That they've got an option on him as well. That the jury still out on him, but a few impressive performances sort of over the last month or so. Toby, do you think sort of striker is going to be a position that's a high priority for Hull in this summer, given what I broke down there in terms of the makeup of the other options?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, Malik Wilkes is another, isn't he? Who's sort of out of contract, who hasn't really fired. Say he's out of contract he is out of contract, but Hull obviously again they've got the 12-month option to extend if they want. Whether they will do, given things haven't really worked out for him again in the Championship this season, remains to be seen. And I know obviously there's already talk of Peterborough have confirmed that they've got an interest in him, obviously managed by Grant McCann, former Hull boss there. So yeah, there's a lot of forwards who, as you say, could sort of be on their way out of Hull come the summer, which suggests they are going to need to find some more firepower from somewhere. But this is sort of where the big question comes in for me about the situation with Forss and whether he's the right one for them, when you consider the fact that it looks as though Tom Eaves is very much the preferred striker at the minute, which is fair enough when you consider sort of the experience that he's sort of got at that level. It's probably more vast than maybe Forss has got. And when you're playing the one centre forward as Hull are at the minute, that means it's hard for other players to sort of come in. But I think what sort of was telling for me was that at the weekend when Eaves did not feature, it was Sayadmanesh rather than Forss that Alva Ladsley chose to start up front for the Tigers. So that sort of really says a lot about where Forss is in the pecking order, and means that when you sort of consider maybe the price that they would have to pay for him, is it really worth doing that for a striker who may not be your first choice come next season?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to sort of the headline question of the debate then. All things considered, everything we've talked about, Toby, if you're in the sort of if you're in that position to make the call in the summer, you're the head of their transfer team, whatever the title would be, would you be signing sort of Marcus Forss permanently in the summer for Hull?
It's a really tough call to make, it feels like, at the minute, because as you say, the pedigree that he has is really promising, and obviously it's not worked out. But some people might point to, say, Victor Gyökeres at Coventry. That was a pretty underwhelming loan spell that he had there during the second half of last season. They went and took a punt on him anyway in the summer, signing him permanently, and that's paid off massively this season with the goals that he's now gone and scored for them. So there's no reason that things couldn't be different for Hull if they were to make it permanent next season. But to be honest, I just think when he's not getting the game time he needs, and as I say, with the price that it would likely cost, and the fact that it could be quite a significant overhaul of the squad that you would imagine we could see at Hull, given sort of the players that are out of contracts, and the fact that it seems like Ilakali is really keen to put his own mark on the side, having completed the takeover. I just think that could cost quite a significant amount. So with what the price would sort of be for Hull in terms of making Forss's own move permanent, and how much that could sort of take out of the budget for, as I say, a player who might not be playing week in, week out if he isn't even getting in ahead of, say, Syed Manesh at the minute. It just maybe, to me, the current evidence suggests it might not be a deal that's worth it for Hull right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with you there. I think you're right in that it's one that Hull will likely see sort of, hard to resist, being in the, a player of that talent and the options that they have to buy him, a difficult one to resist, and perhaps one that they might feel, oh, well, we're going to kick ourselves in 2-3 years' time. But as you say, with so much squad turnover predicted, with him not seeming that high up in the pecking order, you do wonder whether it was really the right time and the right deal, and whether it might actually stunt the growth of the side, sort of putting too many eggs in that one basket. Well, that is everything from us on Football League World, on the debate, and on here today as well. But we will be back tomorrow with the EFL betting show and the EFL Easter weekend preview. That just leaves me to say thanks for Toby, and thanks everyone for watching.